gender and age as the metadata. But for this one, I separated the positive and negative cases. But in this case, we are interested in looking at the positive cases. So from the positive cases that has been separated, I calculated the most common symptoms present by the positive cases. So in this case, in this instance, there are 5 variables that I can observe, which is the 2 that has been present previously, polyuria and polydipsia, and then weakness. Weakness here means overall weakness and not just the muscle. The muscle would be the partial paresis, and the last one would be polyphagia. Next one, okay, observations from the positive cases with gender as metadata, which is male and female separated. So from the positive cases, I separated the male and female, and I calculated the mean of their age. Then it can be observed that the male, the mean for the male positive cases is 51 years old, and the mean for the positive female cases is 47 years old. Okay, next. Okay, as you can see from this histogram, this is the histogram of positive female sample and also histogram of positive male sample. As you, I already positioned the histogram according to the age, so that you can see that most of the positive female is higher in the earlier age, at a younger age, compared to positive male. Variations are according to gender. So we constructed a contingency table according to gender and positive and negative cases. So from the contingency table, we draw a plot, and from the plot you can see the green ones are the positive cases and the blue ones are the negative cases. Actually, from this data, the number of female is lower than the number of male, but the percentage of positive female is more than the percentage of positive male, even though the number of male is higher than the female sample. Okay, next one. So from here, we can draw conclusions. The 3 variables that are affecting the result of diagnosing with diabetes are polyuria and polydipsia and partial paresis. This one we draw from the principal component, and also it has been supported from the further analysis that we have done. And then from the analysis, female are diagnosed with diabetes at an early age compared to male. And thank you. That's it for our presentation. Is there any question?
Okay, just in time, yeah. Thank you. So, okay, maybe do you have a biplot? Did you do a biplot to complement the principal component plot?
No, doctor, we didn't do the biplot.
Can you look at the loadings? The loadings component 1. Actually, if you look at your principal component plot 1 and 2, right? Is that the one that you can look at the scatter plot? Yeah, so okay. have one, then you have actually component 2 may actually explain see, component 2 may explain actually some of the okay, I think one of you need to switch off the microphone because I'm having okay, has it been switched off? Okay. If you look at component 2, right? For very negative component 2, there's actually you can do some separation of the positive is blue, is it?
Yes,
Positive.
doctor.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, of course your PC1 would separate out quite a lot of the, especially if you look at around 0.05, it will basically, anything that's more than 0.05, they are basically just positive for diabetes, right? But then if you look at component 2, right, component 2, anything that's more than 0.05 also are mostly positive, okay? So in fact, I would say PC1 and 2, both of them, they contribute together, yeah. They are kind of like jointly, they kind of like jointly it affect the both. They kind of like jointly affect the ordination of the data points in the principal component space. So if you just look at one of them, right, it may not be enough. Okay. So I think it may be simple, but it may not be enough. All right. You may actually lose out some because there is certainly a group of the positive patients that actually are separated by PC2. Yeah. Maybe it's okay.
But doctor, we tried with the histogram of the component 2, but it's fully overlapped.
No. You don't look at it from a univariate point of view because when you univariate, some of the things you need to look at it from multiple perspectives. Then only you can see the separation. When you collapse it, of course, you will lose information. You see.
Okay,
You can,
got it.
when you collapse it, it only makes it's a good simplification if the other dimension is basically not doing much. It's basically not contributing much. So, but if it is contributing much, when you collapse like this, usually it is you will lose a lot of information. So you have to decide when is a good time to just give a simple summary like collapse everything to one dimension, or sometimes it's better to just leave it as 2 dimensions. Okay. Because when you're looking at things at one particular angle, right, you may actually lose out some important information. Okay. Okay, so all right. So I think you have some additional things that you put in there, like for example, using those Kramer's, is it Kramer statistic? Okay, so I don't know. I've never used it before, so I'm learning something new here. Is it what is this actually? Kramer's V. Is it V or 5?
It's a measure. It's a phi. It's a measure of the strength of the association of the variables with the dependent.
Where did you find this? Is it in the psychology literature?
Not really. I just googled it.
Okay. But I think that it is actually correlated with your chi-square statistic, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because when
It's
you
just
rank, you get the same ranking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, same ranking.
I just want I just want to show how strong the association is.
Okay.
Just want to support the chi-square test statistic that has been done.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure. This is maybe we can all look at this thing. Keep this as one of the possibilities. There are actually a lot of these other possible ways to do variable ranking, right? So this is something that you did, some small research that you did on your own to do it. Okay, that's fine. Okay, I think yeah. So I think enough Q&A for your group. So thanks to Farhana and Ruby.
All right.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Okay. So the next group will be Chao Ziyun and Suchi Aida.
Yes, Doctor.
Can you share your screen?
Okay, can you see the screen? My slide.
Yes, we can see the screen.
So, good evening, everyone. So our group will present about the same data set, diabetes. Okay, my name is Suchi Aida and my teammate is Zion. Okay, I will start with the background of the study. So diabetes has become a common disease to the mankind, okay, from young to older persons. And according to WHO, diabetes is the fastest growing chronic life-threatening disease that have already affected 422 million people worldwide. And according to the statistic, the diagnosis of the diabetes, 50% of all people that are suffering from this disease are actually undiagnosed because of its long-term asymptomatic phase. So early diagnosis of diabetes is not easy. It's only possible by proper assessment of both common and less common signs symptoms, which could be found in different phases from the initiation up to the diagnosis itself. So in future, it is predicted that about 20 to 25 years from now, there will be almost 693, okay, about double of the number now of diabetes patients around the globe, with half of the population will be undiagnosed. So the objective of the study is to investigate the factors or the symptoms that are associated with diabetes, and also to investigate how diabetes can actually be predicted with the assistance of significant attributes and also the association of differing attributes. So description of the data. So the data set used to track diabetes from assessing the symptom. The data set has been collected from Bangladesh, okay, particularly from hospital in Sylhet, and it consists of 522 data with 17 attributes. Okay, so the first attribute is age in numeric, and then we have gender in character, whether it's male or female, and then we have 14 different symptoms. The data is recorded as character, whether yes for having the symptom or no. And then lastly, the important one is class, positive or negative for diabetes. Okay, so you can see that the 14 variable here is the symptom, the one with blue, and some of the terms might be not common to us. For example, polyuria, polydipsia, and so on. I will explain further on that. So basically, polyuria, polydipsia, and polyphagia, these three are very common in diabetes. Okay, so polyuria is increase in urination, polyphagia increase in appetite, and then polydipsia is increase thirst. Okay, and then we have paresis, which is a condition of muscular weakness or by nerve damage. And then alopecia is actually a partial or complete absence of hair from the area where we usually the hair grows. And then lastly, thrush is a common condition caused by a yeast called Candida. So our methodology, we start with pre-processing the data. Okay, we do the data cleaning by checking for any missing values or outliers or inconsistent data. So there is no outliers or missing data. So all we have the complete 520 data. And then next, we do data conversion. So because most of our variables are in character, yes or no, so we convert character to numbers. So yes, for example, yes, 1, no, 0, and so on. Okay, and then for the age, the numeric data, we change the continuous to data. Okay, we put category which each class have about 20 years gaps. And then next we move to feature selection. So mainly we use a chi-square test to reduce the number of attributes. Okay, so we check the association between all 14 symptoms and the class, whether it's positive or negative diabetes. And then next we check the association between the demographic, the age and gender with the class. And then lastly we check the interaction between demographic, the age, and the gender with the symptoms. And then lastly, for further analysis on the significant attributes, we use a bar plot to visualize the proportion and analyze the pattern. So for the first graph here, we have the bar graph showing the total number of symptoms, okay, for two different groups, positive and negative diabetes. So what we can see here, as the number of symptoms increases from 4 and above, we can see that majority, the number of positive diabetes patients are higher than the negative one. But we do also have, when the number of symptoms is 5, the number of negative diabetes is higher than the positive one. So we cannot really see that the higher number of symptoms implies the more diabetes cases. Another thing that we can see here, that when the number of symptoms is 0, there's also a positive cases here. Okay, and then next we do the chi-square test statistic for all the 17 attributes. And then this is the results when we rank the statistic, and we can see if we put threshold here, we can divide them into several groups. Okay, so I will pass the next one to my teammates.
Okay, just to remind you that you have just about 3 minutes to finish.
Oh, we taking time. Left with 3 minutes. Okay lah.
Okay, yeah, Ziyun, you want to?
So don't you forget to switch on your mic.
See you.
Yeah, just go ahead. Can't find the button.
Yeah, finally I can find the button. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
So sorry for that. Yeah. So we can see that chi-square result for the symptom between classes is basically we can divide it into divided into 5 categories, which is extreme strong, strong, moderate, no association. And we will focusing on the extreme strong association and strong association only. So now we look at the symptoms which are extremely strongly associated with diabetes. And we can see that 94% of them with polyuria have diabetes, and 97% of them with polydipsia have diabetes. So we can conclude that those with these two symptoms, either one of them have diabetes. So this is a strong indication that one have diabetes or not. And we also can see that for those who do not have these two symptoms, it is quite likely that the person will not have diabetes as well. When we combine the case together, as shown, the number of case, and we can see that if the person have both of the symptoms, it is 100% certain that the person have diabetes. But however, we cannot conclude the person do not have diabetes if the person do not have these two symptoms. And now we look at the strongly associated symptoms, which are partial paralysis and sudden weight loss. And we can see that it's about 80 something, which is slightly lower than previous two symptoms, but it is still a strong symptoms to indicate that the person have diabetes or not. It also can see that it is slightly lower in the person do not have the symptom, also do not have the diabetes as well. And when we combine all four symptoms together, we can see that if a person have all four symptoms, it is 100% to say that the person have diabetes as well. And if the person do not have any of the symptoms, any of the four symptoms, there are 89% of them do not have diabetes. Therefore, we can conclude that these four symptoms are important symptoms to say one have diabetes or not. And now we compare the association between the demographic and classes, and we found that gender has strong association with the classes. Thus, we will focus on the discussion for the gender only. Okay. And we find the interaction between the selected symptom with gender, and we found that there is association between them. And we also can see that there's interaction between the symptom and gender. First, we can see that the male without one of the selected symptoms is quite certain that the male do not have diabetes. On the other hand, if the female have either one of the selected symptoms, it is quite certain, it's almost 100% to say that female have diabetes. And lastly, although female do not have any of these four symptoms, we also cannot conclude that female do not have diabetes as well, because there's still quite likely that the female have diabetes, although she do not have any of these four symptoms. So when we combine together the symptoms together, we can see that for female, when female have two or more selected symptoms, female is quite certain to have diabetes. But for male, we can see that we can conclude that male do not have diabetes when he do not have any of the selected four symptoms. So as a conclusion, Polyuria and polydipsia are extremely strongly associated with diabetes, followed by partial paralysis and sudden weight loss. And one has all of the selected symptoms. One can tell he or she has diabetes regardless of gender. When one has one or more of the selected symptoms, females have higher possibility in having diabetes as compared to males. And when there is no selected symptoms, they are still more likely that female have diabetes than male. This implies that it is more likely female diabetes patient is asymptomatic or with other symptoms. That's all our presentation today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ziyun. Okay. Okay, so maybe I just ask a few questions here. So in your entire analysis did not use a principal component analysis. Can you tell me why you didn't use it? Why you think that?
Because my understanding is for principal component is measure of variation between numerical data, but for our cases we convert all only the age is numerical data, but we convert into categorical data. So we can say that all of our data is categorical data. That's why we only using chi-square test instead of PCA.
I see. So
yeah,
what do you think about, so the other group used the PCA to perform some kind of dimensional reduction, and they managed to get quite some results there. So what do you think about that?
I think is, I don't know, because I reading from the definition side, so that's why we did this decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so later I'll comment more about this. But I think there's one part in your analysis that's interesting is when you look at it from the perspective of once you have sorted out the four, you sorted out some variables that are strongly associated and very strongly and then strong association, then you look at then you further look at how if they have jointly if they have all four conditions, then they are almost sure to be having diabetes, right?
You mean this,
yeah,
right?
The number of strong, yeah, right.
Yeah.
This is a very good observation. In fact, this is how the doctors actually make their diagnosis. They will look. They don't just look at one symptom. When you have the symptoms, basically appear to them as some kind of evidence, right? But when they see like all these symptoms are all present, right? Then they can be very sure already. So they get that from experience, but it's very nice from here that you can actually see the evidence. And it's also telling you that there are some people who have diabetes, but they absolutely show none of the common symptoms, yeah? Like a very small minority, right? You see that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is telling you that there's some people who are kind of like they're diabetic, but they're asymptomatic. They don't have the common symptoms, okay? Which means sometimes if you feel like you're healthy, but you may actually have diabetes. but it's not very common. But this one is very useful, right? This one. In fact, when I look at the whole thing, right, I have a suggestion how you can incorporate everything, including the principal component result, and then build a predictor out of that. But this is part of the observation that is important. Okay. Other than that, how about the? I think you said something about the gender, right?
Yeah. I see that the gender is...
There's some kind of a gender difference, right? Okay. Can you comment why? this was also found by the other group. Why do you think there are more females? Why do you think that the incidence of diabetes is higher in the females?
Perhaps because of their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What aspect?
Because a male is tend to like to exercise, but female not really.
So females don't like to exercise.
Generally, not all.
Really?
Also, Chi, you can help me to add on.
Can you give a plausible explanation as to why the proportion of females who have diabetes in this sample is much higher than the males?
But some studies say that it's because of gene.
Well, you can, well, of course, that could be one of the possibilities, but I think there's a very simple explanation in this case. You look at a country, this data comes from Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So does that immediately give you a clue?
Because the female cannot leave their house.
I think they are quite okay. It's okay. They are able to do that. They are actually quite movement of females is actually common, so it's not a problem. Is the country primarily agricultural or industrial?
Agriculture, I think, if not mistaken.
So agricultural work, does it involve more men or women?
It will be mainly on men.
Right. So that's where your men get your exercise from, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas I think in this case is because the males, they go out to do the physical work. So they are less sedentary, you see. So it helps that is actually known to be preventive against diabetes. Whereas there are females, they are not, they maybe sit at home and do the other kinds of household management kind of work, or like weaving or whatever. Those that are not really physical. So then that's where your lifestyle comes in. You mentioned that. Yeah. So this pattern, right, may actually be different and vary by country. You go to some other countries, you look at these statistics, you may find that maybe male and female, there's no difference. But so when you try to understand that, you will have to know something about the background of the country. Yeah. So I think in this case, it explains. It could totally reverse in some other countries, where if the men are sedentary and the females are like doing all the physical work, it could happen. So yeah, I think that's a good. Sometimes when you see these kind of numbers, we would like to think about it to get some kind of perspective. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's enough Q&A for your group. So thanks Ziyun and Suchi.
Thank you, doctor.
Okay. So maybe I just comment something about this data set. So okay, let me share my screen. So as a summary, right? So this data set is primarily, so this is a diabetes data set. Okay. So I think both groups are, they presented, so if I take the results from both groups, put them together, so I would think that's a pretty complete result, right? So your data set is basically you have these potential risk factors, right? It doesn't matter. In this case, very simple, only yes, no, like they got polyuria, polyphagia. So you also learn something here, right? Like if you find that someone, if you notice your parents or whoever you have close contact with, you notice that they're always thirsty and they urinate a lot. It's probably a sign that they already have diabetes. And if they are not, if you are not aware of that, better bring them to a doctor. Yeah, so you learn something as well. Maybe for yourself also next time. Yeah, when you become older. So anyway, so there are a lot of these variables, right? And primary, so then you have the like gender, male, then you have females, right? Okay, and then you have the age. Okay, so so then I think you, of course, there's no right or wrong way to treat gender or age as I would basically treat this more as a metadata rather than a variable. I'll give you my ideas about this. So basically, you have some stuff like this. It's 0, 1 only, okay? So 1 for yes, 0 for no. So yes, they are categorical, but there's something special about binary categorical variables. These are categorical variables, yeah? These are all categorical, but when it's binary, right, 0, 1, it can be treated as it is a numerical data set. Okay, this is only special for binary variables. If you got non-binary, then you stop having that property. So it's a special property of categorical variables where you have 0, 1. Yeah. So you have diabetes, and maybe some are normal, diabetes, normal, and so on, right? So the data set is basically like this. So what you can basically do, the direct analysis would be you just do a PCA. Oh. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for telling me. So you just do usual your R mode PCA, right? And you will get the result that Ruby and Farhana got, right? And you will basically find that you've got the PC1 and PC2, and they show that there was some kind of a pattern like this. So let me think. So roughly there's something like this. So there's kind of like a bit of a mix up in the middle, but overall your blue, right? Your blue is the positive, okay, according to their coloring. So basically if you do a cut like this, right, that means you do a cut like this, all these guys here, you can actually so these guys will be all like the positive for diabetes, all right? And I think there was something like this as well. So you make a cut over here. So for those over here, you make a cut here. So this side also will be, these guys will also be mostly, oops. This will be also mostly positive, right? So you end up, you define basically some regions in the principal component space where it is positive for diabetes. Of course, there's some mix up here which cannot be helped, right? Now, if you do a biplot, right? Your biplot, you will get your those vectors, right? So this will tell you which variable is pushing the samples to which region in the principal component plot, and that's going to be very helpful, yeah. So for Ruby's group, if you do the biplot to supplement, it will be actually quite good, right? So at least you know the contribution of those variables to ordination. Because you will know not only that, you're not only just looking at the positive and negative, but you're trying to understand why some specimens samples they go to this part of the space, right? So that will tell you something. Now, so you have your principal component 1, principal component 2 loadings, right? So these are your risk factors. So you got polyuria, whatever. Then you have your loadings here, right? These are your values, right? I don't know, like 0.5 something, maybe 0.8 something, whatever. Okay. What can be done is as follows. Now you have this loading already. So this loading is actually giving you some kind of it tells you how important is that particular variable, right? In ordination of these samples. Okay. You can do some kind of idea like this. You could actually take the absolute. You take the absolute of the loadings, and then you add them together, right? So this one you have some kind of weight, well maybe a score, right? So for example, you take the absolute because it could be negative, right? But you only care about the magnitude. So like in this case, this will give you a score 1.3 and so on and so forth. Okay. And after that, okay, so you can actually normalize this score, normalize by the minimum. Okay, you normalize by the minimum, so you will get so of course after you normalize by the minimum, so some of these things, if this is relatively large, this may get pushed up to 2 point something or whatever, right? So the smallest one is 1. Yeah. Okay. So then if you use Suchi's group's idea, right? Okay, like for example, you may have polyuria, polydipsia. These are the 2 important ones, right? Let's say from here you get a score like this, 4.8. This one 3.7, for example. Then what are the other 2 variables? Yeah, they are important.
Partial paresis.
Partial paresis and what else?
Sudden weight loss.
Sudden weight loss. Okay. So let's say like I'm just giving example. So maybe this is 2.1 and this is 1.5. All right. Of course, you need not restrict to 4. You can actually use all of them. All right. You can actually use all of them. Now, let's say you have a sample. Now I will restrict this to I will separately do this for the male group and the female group. Okay, I'll separately do that for male and female. So like say for example a male, right? If a male presents himself with these symptoms, then I would give this male a score, a total score of 1 times 4.8 plus 1 times 3.7 plus everything. So this male will receive the score of about, you add up everything, so this will be 8.5, this will be 10.6, and this will be 11.1. Okay? So this male, right, if all 4 symptoms are available, you get 11.1. If let's say another male, right, it only has 1 symptom, then it will receive a score of 1.5. Right? This total score will act as some kind of evidence for diabetes. You will find that if you do this, right, and you do a distribution of this total score, you will find that the diabetes guys are like this. Whereas the non-diabetes guys will be like something like this, mostly like this. Okay, so this will give you your separation. What Ziyun has done is basically when look at all 4 evidence, they are basically just adding up all 4. They are basically looking at it from the perspective of the weight of everything is 1. Okay, which is also okay. But if you use the loadings, right, from the principal component to help, that will make the distinction even sharper. All right, so I think that is a very, if you are planning to develop some kind of machine learning model for using this kind of data set, these are the ideas that you should try. All right. Okay, so and you can separately do it for the male and the female, right? Because the male and the female may have, like I think what they found was that there are different sets of variables that may be important for the males and the females. Okay, so this is just to give you further ideas on how to get more things out of this data set. Although it looks simple, right, this data set, but actually there are a lot of very interesting things that can be done. And especially if you come up with some machine learning models based on this data set, that can be very cool, right? Like you just need to know whether the person has whatever symptoms, and then you can predict whether this person is going to have diabetes or whether this person has diabetes or not. Okay, and very frequently this may actually agree with what the doctor's diagnosis is. Yeah. Okay, but you are purely using it. You're purely using data to arrive at that conclusion. Yeah, without actually having studied medicine. Okay, so that could be something that is actually quite cool. Yeah. Of course, the doctors who have actually looked at all these cases every day. In some sense, they are also like some kind of a machine learner, right? But they are just organic machine. They are like some sort of organic machine learning thing, because when they look at a lot of these things, right, they also know with some intuition what associations are important. Yeah. Okay, so that's my feedback about these data sets.
So I have a question, because if we are using the loadings for all these so-called binary variables here, right, it's like 1, 0, isn't that will be the same score in general for those who presented the same symptoms?
No, because it won't, because when you use the score, right, the weightage is different. You look at the scores, right, they act like some kind of a weight. Basically, when let's say you got these 4 variables, right?
Yeah, I understand now. Yeah, I understand.
They are all
it's like, yeah.
They are all possible combinations, right? So basically, since you have 0, 1, you basically have 2 power of 4. That means there are 16 ways to combine these 4 scores.
Yep.
So they will lead to different kinds of
scoring.
Scores, and then you can look at their distributions.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, so yeah.
So in order to develop a machine learning model, so we need to do more than just PCA. It's not enough. We have to do
sure. That the PCA will give you some ideas. What are the important variables to include? Like for example, initially you already did feature selection, right?
Yeah, we did.
So actually, of course, when you do PCA, you don't really need to do that feature selection because you don't have that many features. Mm-hmm. So, but then, of course, you can compare the result that you get from doing feature selection and without feature selection. And generally, we just want to keep a very compact set of features, because we want to kind of like cut down on the number of dimensions like all the time, right? Because of the problem of curse of dimensionality. So if the variable is not important, we should get it out of the model, because it will just be there to disturb your machine learning performance. So that's why initially we always will start with, if you're categorical variable, check the chi-square statistic. And usually in this case, you see very clearly the strong ones, their chi-square values are very high, and the weak ones are very kind of like kind of like very small. So those are, of course, if you want to, you can actually include that as well as some kind of weak evidence. So there are many ways to do machine learning models. So the important part about it is that we develop ideas how to work with the data.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Yeah.
Hello, Doctor. I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
So this is, I think it's quite a naive question. So in this diabetic research, right, it says that female is more prevalent in getting diabetes. So my concern is what if my sample, I mean, it's already like, for example, 30% male, 70%, sorry, it's 30% male, 70% female. So does that actually affect the results?
Okay, so you're looking at the within the group, right? Within the, actually you cannot use this as a kind of okay. So the thing with this kind of observational data is that you see when people go to hospital, right? There are all sorts of reasons. Okay, and generally you cannot really know the prevalence by just checking the hospital records, because sometimes it's the way referrals are made, you see. So therefore, when we see this kind of data, right, we can actually try to understand them, but we will actually we will actually quite refrain ourselves from making too strong statements about like whether males are going to get diabetes more likely or not. But we can definitely try to understand them, like how I try to understand the data just now. Okay, and for this data set, I don't know, the males are they very unbalanced with respect to the females? What's the percentage?
It's more than half, actually.
Do you know the exact? Is it
around 380, if I'm not mistaken?
I mean the percentage.
The percentage is around.
Did you calculate that?
No, I didn't. Maybe around 60 to 70%.
For males?
Yeah, for males.
Yeah, so that could be, well, I think it's still okay. As long as you don't have like a minority, like 5% and all that, or 10%. Because you see, sometimes there are reasons why you have more males compared to females. Because sometimes sometimes maybe like, you know, they don't want to go to the hospital. It's also maybe something about awareness. And in some poor countries, you know, when they go to hospitals, right, they need to take day off to go there, and the queue is very long. So if they're hard pressed, if they're needed to make money to support the family, right, they cannot afford to take leave, you see. So they may end up like, well, you know, even though you don't feel like very good, but you just don't go to hospital because you can't afford to take a leave off. So that for that reason, it may actually skew the number of the you know, percentage of gender that you get in the hospital. But we will not really know this unless we talk to the doctors, because we are not at the ground observing how the samples actually come into the study, right? So that's why this gives you some interesting lesson, which is it's always good to talk to the data owner if you can, and try to understand the background of the data, how the data actually comes in and all that. Because without that, the most you can do is you can think of many possibilities, but you are not really sure which one is causing that kind of situation. So yeah, so we always try to understand some, because you have to understand that this kind of data are all observational data. They are not planned in advance, yeah. So definitely sometimes given local conditions or whatever, you can actually end up with data that may be biased. That's definitely possible. So with that, you may not be able to say much about differences in males and females, but maybe just focusing more at the risk factor level.
All right, thank you, doctor.
Okay. So one more takeaway message from this data set is that yes, you can work with 0-1 data using PCA, definitely okay. 0-1 data is actually kind of like special in some sense. It's a present absence kind of data. So summing the ones actually can maybe meaningful. Yeah, it's just saying that if you have like you sum across that, you get 4. That means there are like an occurrence of 4. Okay.
Okay, doctor.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I think it's good that you both groups presented different perspectives of the data. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We have like how much time do we have now? Okay, we can do one group and then we go for break. So the next group, who would like to?
We are ready, doctor.
Okay.
I'm Wing Feng. Okay.
So yeah, so 10 minutes, yeah. Keep to 10 minutes and then we'll 5 minutes for Q&A.
All right.
Okay. Just share your screen.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait.
The title of our presentation is PCA analysis of HCV data for identification of hepatitis C infection. Our group members include Wan Wenfeng, Chang Qianyi, and Wei Silu. Our presentation consists of 6 parts: background, data, methodology, results, discussion, and recommendation. All observations are classified into 5 categories: broad donor, suspect broad donor hepatitis, fibrosis, cirrhosis. Broad donor means they are normal without any liver diseases. Suspect broad donor means their health status are suspicious. They may be carriers of some diseases. Hepatitis refers to they are infected with hepatitis C. Is a virus where the virus will damage the liver function. And fibrosis and cirrhosis are other kinds of liver diseases. They are usually caused by drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and so on. And they have different signatures compared to hepatitis C. There are many reasons that could cause liver injury, and one of them is hepatitis C virus. Our goal is to separate the people with hepatitis C and others. The data set is from the sources as the slide shows. It includes 615 observations and 13 variables. There are 12 independent variables, including age, sex, and lots of medical abbreviations like ALB, ALP. Next page. I'm going to introduce some variables we will mention later. For example, BIL means bilirubin. BIL is a substance found in the bile and is produced during the normal breakdown of red blood cells. AST is a kind of enzyme. AST is mainly found in the liver, so if the liver is injured, they release AST into the blood. ALB is albumin. ALB is a protein made by your liver. Low albumin levels can indicate a problem with your liver or kidneys. CHE is cholinesterase. CHE is a family of esterase that is found mainly in the blood plasma. ALP is alkaline phosphatase. A high ALP usually means that either the liver has been damaged or a condition causing increased bone cells activity is present.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For my part, I'll be presenting on the methodology. First, for data processing, we'll be checking whether there's missing data in the set, and we found that there are 26 rows of observation containing a total of 31 missing values. And LB, ALP, CHOL, and PROT, these 5 variables are the columns that contain missing values. And by looking at table 1, it shows that total number and percentage of missing data based on different categories. And by seeing the table 1, we can see that there's actually only 4% of missing data in the entire data set. However, if you look at the process, you can see that the missing data is actually taking up 43% of the categories. And so we like to replace the missing data with median. And secondly, for the variable sex, we change the categorical variable, which is originally M for male and F for female, which to continuous variable to 0 and 1 to perform GA. And for data exploration, because this data set contains more observation than variables, so we perform armored PCA and we plot Druckmann plot, scatter plot, and biplot to determine influential factors. And the results for this figure shows the Druckmann plot for the pairwise scatter plot for the first 4 principal components obtained from the PCA of the hepatitis C data set. And we can see the overall PC1 versus PC3 shows the clearest clustering pattern, and the rest are all quite overlapping. And this scatter plot, we can have a clear view on PC3 against PC1, and we can see that the blood donor, tuberculosis, and hepatitis, they are actually in one cluster, and the blue color ones is because they are in another cluster.
All right. Next, we plotted a biplot. So this biplot is actually to check the influence of each variables on the principal components. So based on principal component 3 and principal component 1, we observed that the people with cirrhosis is mainly concentrated at the positive side of the principal component 1. And principal component 1 is actually a separation between AST, GGT, and BIL with ALB, CHE, and PROT. And through this biplot, we also can see that some which is suspected to have this disease is concentrated at the positive side of the PC3. So PC3 is actually a contrast between age, ALP, and CHOL with sex, PROT, and AST. So we found that the effort to enhance identification of hepatitis C in human is a focus of the modern medical science. So a failure or delay in identification of this virus could result in severe consequences, such as a viral widespread of the virus, medical misdiagnosis, which could cause permanent liver damage and death. So our analysis has shown that markers of hepatitis C virus in human blood at early stage till development of fibrosis is rather weak. And among the samples of our analysis, we also found that the elderly people tend to display higher ALP level in their blood. So most often is misinterpreted as hepatitis C infection. However, abnormal ALP levels could also be sign of bone diseases, primarily in the elderly population. So, and our analysis also identify elevated AST, GGT, and BIL level to be associated with cirrhosis and not early stage of fibrosis or hepatitis C infection. So our recommendation is liver disease can be caused by various reasons such as alcohol abuse, obesity, and also inheritance. So to further strengthen the identification of this virus, we could introduce some factors, behavioral and also demographic information such as BMI, family background, alcohol user, and also other health condition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wing Fong. So, yeah, interesting presentation. Can I look at the bar plot? Okay. So those with the hepatitis are the red ones.
Yes.
Okay. So they are kind of like a bit mixed up with the blood donors. I mean, like normal blood donors, right?
It's rather weak. It's not clear the separation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is saying that it's actually not easy to know whether someone has hepatitis C or not based on the markers that you have used in the study, right?
Yes.
But there are some of the samples are pushed to the edge. So what do you think? Why do you think they are pushed down there?
Okay, so firstly, I believe is when it's pushed down here, it's the negative side of the PC3. So the negative side of the PC3 is sex, protein, and also AST. So I believe firstly it's because in our sample I think it's about 70% of it is this male donors. So there's more samples at the male side, and also I think it's the protein sort of they have a higher level of protein because I think when they have this virus, they sort of will cause the protein level and also the AST level in the blood to be higher.
Okay, so I think those that that you get pushed downwards, they are probably females. Female hepatitis, you can check your data set. Yeah. I from the graph here, it looks like they are females. The reason why they are down there is maybe it's just because they are females. Okay. Now, how about the green ones?
The green ones are the suspected,
Okay.
not clear. Yeah.
So, do you think that they need to be investigated?
Yes, definitely. They should go through a more thorough test.
Because they seem to be forming a smaller. There are not a lot of them, but they seem to be going on the. They seem to form one cluster, right? Which suggests that they are kind of like. So this may be, if you look at the arrows there, they are maybe higher. They are very low in ALS and protein. You look at ALS and protein, and they are going in the opposite direction of the green cluster, right?
Yep. So
one way to characterize the green cluster is that they have very low ALS and very low protein levels. You can actually check the data. It will be true.
All right.
Yeah. So that's one way to characterize them. Yeah. Look at the opposite. The arrows are actually going in the opposite direction where the green cluster is going. they might be indicative of some other disease like could be HIV. These people might have HIV or some unknown kinds of disease. Yeah. So if someone has a medical background, right, they when they look at this, they might be able to understand like the ALS is very low and the protein is very low. So what kind of, then they usually, since they study that, they will know which kind of diseases are associated with low ALS and protein. And they might actually go do further testing for that suspect the donor. Okay. What else? Can you look at the? Can we look at the last slide? Okay, so you made some recommendation, which is I think is good because this can help, right? Since we know that liver damage is associated with usage of drugs and alcohol, so collecting this information will be actually useful, yeah. Because then it may strengthen your conclusion, right? Okay, so this is a good suggestion to offer. Okay, so I think that will be all that I have for the Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thanks. Okay, right, so now it is 7:30, so we will break for now and come back at 8 o'clock, yeah. So the next group to continue will be Mangkit, Alia, and Yu Jing's group, okay?
Okay.
Chronic hepatitis C. A large number of the chronically infected people will develop cirrhosis or liver cancer. And then more than 95% of the infected people can be cured with antiviral medicines, but currently there is no effective vaccine against this disease. Next, please. All right. So basically, there are 5 stages of liver failure. The first one is inflammation, where the liver is enlarged and inflamed. And then the scar tissue will start to replace the healthy tissue in the inflamed liver. And this is called as the fibrosis. And then it will go into the next stage, which is cirrhosis. It is a late stage of scarring, and it can make the liver to stop functioning properly. And then it will go into the next stage, which is ESLD, which stands for end-stage liver disease. And the last stage is the liver cancer. Next. All right, now moving on to the data set information. The data set was obtained from samples of 615 people, which were categorized into blood donor, cirrhosis, fibrosis, hepatitis, and suspect blood donor. This is our target variable, and then it consists of 13 explanatory variables, which are sex, age, and the other 10 variables are actually the proteins that are naturally produced by our body. And some of the proteins are produced in the liver, and some of them are produced in other parts of the body. So our aim is to study about the patterns of variation in the data set. Next. Now moving on to the methodology. For the exploratory data analysis, we used a graphical method where we created box plot, scatter plot, and also correlation plot. And then for the feature selection, we applied the principal component analysis and also recursive feature elimination. Next. For the exploratory data analysis, firstly, we dealt with the missing values, since our data set contains 31 missing values, which can be found from these 5 variables. So what we did was we imputed the missing data with the category median for each of the columns. And then we also noticed that the range for every column is different. So we use scale method in R so that we can observe better in the scatter plot and also handling the PCA. And then we left out the sex variable after observing the box plot and also chi-square test. So based on the box plot that we created, it indicates that both female and also male span are around the same range and have a similar median. And then we created new categories for our target variable. So in the original data set, right, we have 5 categories for the target variable, which are blood donor, cirrhosis, fibrosis, hepatitis, and also suspect blood donor. So we just keep the blood donor category, and then we put the cirrhosis and fibrosis and also hepatitis in a new category, which we name it as hepatitis, because we know that cirrhosis and fibrosis are just the late stages of hepatitis. And then we remove the suspect blood donor because the number of samples is too small, so we assume that it is just a noise. Next.
Okay.
Using argon. Okay.
Okay, look at the first box plot. Generally, most of the distribution are skewed. Look at the ALP, fibrosis, and hepatitis have relatively low values. For the ALT, fibrosis has relatively large range, and all the patients seem to have a right skewed distribution. Look at the AST, patients seem to have higher values, and the cirrhosis has a large range. But for cirrhosis, BIR is higher, while CT and CHOL seem to be lower. For the GGT, patients may have a higher values. Next. Next, we will divide the data into 2 categories, blood donor and hepatitis patient, where hepatitis here includes cirrhosis and fibrosis. We can observe the blood donor seems to have normal distribution for each variable. Besides, hepatitis patients seem to have a right skewed distribution in general, except for CTE. By variable ALB, ALP, ALT, CTE, CHOL, there may be a lower value for hepatitis patients. For variable AST, AIL, GGT, hepatitis patients have higher values. So variable ARB, ARP, ART, CT, CHOL could decrease in hepatitis patient. Variable AST, BIL, GGT could increase in hepatitis patient. Next. There is a correlation plot which contains 5 sides of correlation, where moderate positive correlation is from 0.5 to 0.7. Low positive correlation is from 0.3 to 0.5. Next. Look at the table. Those that have higher correlation with each other are following variables. And also it seems the PROT is correlated with ALB. Next, look into different combination of variables. Next.
All right, for the scatter plot part, we look into different combinations of variables instead of plotting all of the variables. So the combinations are as follows. Next. Right now, let's look at the scatter plot on the left-hand side. We can see that there is a positive correlation between CHE and also CHOL. But looking at the scatter plot on the right-hand side, it looks like there is no correlation at all between all of the variables. And we can see that the both samples, blood donor and hepatitis, overlap with each other for all of the scatter plots. Next. So this is the 3D scatter plot between ALT and AST. So we can see that ALT and AST may be a good pair for separating the two samples because there is formation of two clusters here. Even though there is some of the samples overlap with each other, it is still considered fine. Next.
And also we apply a PCA on the different selection of columns as mentioned on the few slides before. So the selections of column is actually based on those box plot and the observation from the scatter plot itself to deduct which is the useful columns that we might be using for a PCA. So judging on this PCA, we can see that the PC1 and PC4 having a better clustering part where all the blood donors is actually clustered together and the hepatitis is scattering around. The reason why is it like it's scattering around is because from my understanding itself, it's like in general the blood donor should have a normal range of all these variables, which is the body enzyme level and so on, and protein as well. And then when they have some disease, and it will reflect into the either a higher range or a lower range. So that's why we can see it scatter around, but the one that is normal usually is within here. Those that are a bit out of the range is possibly they have some other underlying medical conditions that we never know. And then also, yes, we applied this recursive feature elimination, which is some sort of feature selection method to fit a model and also remove the least importance variable. So from the result itself, we actually found out that the same variables appear for the AST, ALP, ALT, and GGT, but not CHE, of course. So this feature selection here, actually they indirectly matching with the result. That means possibly they are actually important. And then for this four, we could actually, looking on this graph, right? This is the number of variables that we are selecting. And this is the accuracy of how accurate are us to predict those patients. So when we are reaching to the 4 variables, we already have a 0.97 accuracy. So if let's say you are training with a model and preferably to use lesser features, then we would recommend using AST, ALP, and ALT GGT to do this model. And of course, if you're always looking for the highest accuracy, there's 9 features here, which then the result is shown in the notebook itself, but not from the slides. So the conclusion is actually, as a result suggested by PCA and recursive feature elimination is an RFE, the top 4 features that we selected will be ALP, ALT, ST, and GGT. So there is definitely further improvement to be done. So from what we are doing here just right now is only looking on the hepatitis C, where the enzyme level itself and protein release is actually different on different stages of liver damage. So let's say we successfully classify those cases that are positive, we can further drill down to look into is these guys are under fibrosis or cirrhosis. Besides that, because as shown by the last group, I mean not the last group, the diabetes group just now, their features itself is actually a binary. So from our end, we can also create some binary features to look into whichever that is in normal range, we put it as 0, and the one that is out of normal range, we put it as 1 to build a better model. So that's all from us. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to the presentation. What is the go back to the sample size? So how many cases of normal? 533.
Yep.
25. So total that's 608.
Yes.
If you divide 533 with 608, what do you get?
It's about 87% point. I mean, yeah, 87%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's your baseline accuracy.
Yep.
So you can move it to 90 something. Okay. Of course, this part that you actually did is actually not required.
Yeah, we did another test using F-test as well, but it's not shown in the slide. Just that the result is indirectly matching with our PCA and also this RFE at the same time. So we did not show that. We just show the most important one.
So how come you didn't do a biplot? That would be a natural thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why I actually did a biplot. Just that I didn't manage to put on the colors. That's why I put the loadings here.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's way harder to see compared to the biplot because we don't have the directions. But yeah.
You actually scaled your data, is it?
Yes, I scaled my data.
Scale your data before you
putting it into the PCA.
Yes. All right. Well, I would say, okay, I think your comments are about why the normal, they form one cluster and those with disease, they are kind of scattered. I think your comment was quite nice because when you have disease, it's a kind of deregulation, right? It's going out normal kind of thing. So if the variables that you have chosen are informative, then they should result in scatter of the abnormal cases from the normal cases. So this plot is actually reasonable. Yeah, you find the disease data points are going away from the very compact normal cases. Except that I think if you had kept the original labels, it would have been better because here I think cirrhosis and the other is fibrosis. They are not necessarily they are not necessarily caused by hepatitis. So when you lump them with hepatitis, it's kind of like you're lumping a group of heterogeneous pathologies together. So so I think if you had kept them separate, that would be more useful.
Okay.
And in fact, the suspicious cases, those I think are useful to include rather than exclude because we want to see where they sit in this principal component space, right? Then we might have some idea whether those suspect cases are fibrosis, cirrhosis, hepatitis, or maybe they represent something else totally different. So I would say because we are actually at a data exploration stage, so it would be better to kind of like look at the data as they are.
Okay.
Okay, what else have we got? Maybe a look at the box plots. Maybe Yu Jing can, but that's a nice one. The 3D plot is actually very nice.
Do you want to look at the interactive one?
It's okay. Because the interactive sometimes it may cause some lag.
I actually have it ready. Just I didn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe after that.
Okay.
Yeah, after that we will just look at some cool interactive. Yeah. So you made a statement there, Yu Jing. The blood donor seems to have normal distribution for each variable. Can you tell from the box plot that they are normally distributed?
Normal.
Is the box plot, can you tell that from the box plot it's a normal distribution?
If I'm not mistaken, when the median line is actually on the middle, it's about it should be about like a normal distribution.
I think it can only tell you that the distribution is symmetric. If the median is sitting in the middle and the box is actually not skewed. That's all it can tell you. It cannot tell you whether it's normally distributed or not.
Okay.
For that, you usually will need to check something like the
histogram,
histogram or the basic one, or they usually will check the QQ plot, the quantile plot. But normality is not necessary here, because we are not doing inference work here. So whether it's normal or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So maybe the slide before that. I also saw another slide.
Yep.
Yeah, this one.
Sorry, I had the wrong screen.
Okay. So this one compares these are the univariate comparisons.
Yep. It's only looking basically on one variable without considering others.
Yeah, one by one. Sometimes it's useful if the difference is very big. Like for example, I think CHE is actually quite big. You see that the green is cirrhosis. The cirrhosis is occupying some range that is more or less by itself. So that's, sometimes you can get something interesting. Maybe AST also. AST is very low for the, yeah. So AST maybe for normal people is actually very tightly controlled. It won't go off, AST. But for the people with this kind of liver problem, the AST will generally go off. So that's useful. From here, you can have some idea which variables are useful, even without doing any kinds of formal tests. So, I mean, like if you do an F test ANOVA, you basically like AST will give you very high F statistics. But even without doing it, you from looking at it, you more or less know already. So that's the value of these plots. Okay, so this is a nice summary. Okay, yeah, you wanted to show the 3D plot.
Yeah, should be here. So I only plot on the ALP, AST, and ALT. So in general, let's not rotate it at the moment. So we can see those blue color points is always within the 50 range of AST, and then for ALP wise, it will be always within the 150 for the blood donors. And then for this particular ALT wise, you can see it's a scattering around like 100 plus. The one that is always out of the range, you can see.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the unusual, the ones with liver problem, they will actually go out of that blue cluster.
So it's either on top or on the bottom. You can see the points here. It's like,
okay, that's kind of like interesting. Liver disease being a departure from the cluster of blue points. Yeah, this is a very nice illustration. it illustrates what pathologies actually mean. That means something that is unusual from the normal. So what tool did you use to make this plot?
It's actually Plotly. So yeah, I mean, I have the codes on the particular GitHub. If let's say anyone.
You're not using R to do that, right?
I'm using R.
Huh?
It's actually R, just that I using a different IDE, which is different than
You're using a different, what's that package, is it?
I'm using the same package with R, just that I'm using a different software tools, which is like similar like RStudio, just that it's easier for the presentation part.
Okay.
Yeah, so like let's say you wanted to know about this, and you can just press it in and look into it.
Okay, I learned something from you. Yeah, the one that I the one that I know is the RGL library, but I guess that one is a little bit it also does the job, but I think this one is kind of like maybe that one is like when you plot a lot of data points, it becomes very slow to rotate and it may hang actually. So this one, it looks like it's very smooth.
Yeah, I actually just tried with one libraries on the 3D plot. Generally, I don't try on the 3D plot actually, because it's a bit hard when it comes to interactive.
Yeah. Right. Okay, I'm sure you can make the data points transparent, right? So you can see through.
I suppose yes, but I never tried that. Yeah, yeah.
I think it's just specifying the color. Instead of the color, you give blue or red, right? You just use the RGB. You change it to RGB. Then without the quotes. You try that without the quotes. Okay, RGB then brackets. Sorry, RGB then the open close bracket. Then you put 1, comma 0, comma 0. Then let's say the last one is transparency value. So 0.2. Let's say you put 0.2. Okay, that's red color. Then you do the other one for blue color. Then comma RGB. Yeah, blue will be 0, 0, 1. Okay, then 0.2. I think it's just that. You try it. Yep. Yeah, see? Okay, nice. Right, you can see the overlaps now. Yep. So the part that's overlapping, you see that as kind of like magenta, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay, interesting, okay. So, okay, thank you for your presentation. Well done.
Thank you, Dr. Khan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
So later, I'm going to ask everyone to, your R codes you will share. And so basically later, I'll ask everyone to share the R codes, yeah, that you use to do the data processing so that others can actually learn from you, yeah, okay? Then you will learn from each other, all right? So great. So next we move on to the next one is
group 8 is ready.
Okay. We are going to talk about the mice protein.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So let's go ahead.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. We are group 8 and we are going to start our presentation. So the data set that we are using is the mice protein expression data set. There are 38 control mice and 34 trisomic mice. Trisomic is actually as Down syndrome. And most of the time, Down syndrome happens when a child is born with an extra copy of their 21st chromosome. So it also known as trisomic 21. And there are, in this data set, there are 15 measurements per mouse. Therefore, we have a total of 1,080 measurements. Then the mice can be classified into 8 classes. There are 82 variables in this data set. The first one is the mouse ID, and followed by expression levels of 77 proteins. For genotype, mice can be control or trisomy. For treatment type, the mice either injected by memantine or saline water. The memantine is a drug could possibly recover the learning ability of trisomic mice. For behavior, some mice have been stimulated to learn, which is CS, and others are not stimulated to learn, which is represented as SC. The last variable is class. These are the 8 classes of mice described based on the genotype and the behavior of the mice and the treatment types. The first step of our analysis is data preprocessing. We found 3 measurements of a mouse that had missing values in majority of the proteins. We then removed those 3 measurements. There are 9 proteins that had missing values. So we used 2 methods to try to fill in the missing values. First, for each protein with missing values, we fitted linear regression models with data grouped by classes. And then we fill the missing value by the predicted values. If the predictions greater than the maximum or less than the minimum values of that class, we will replace the linear regression predictions by the median value. This is to avoid the introducing of extreme values. After that, we will collapse the repeated measurements of each mouse by mean. And that's all for the data preprocessing. I will pass to my friend Hin Chun for the following parts.
Hello everyone. So we first conducted a ANOVA test. And ANOVA test is used to determine whether there are any significant differences between the means of each class of mice among the protein classification. Our assumptions that must be fulfilled for ANOVA to be carried out is that observations must be independent and the outcome must be continuous and normally distributed. The variances must also be equal. The observations is independent because we have already collapsed the mice of the 50 measurements into a unique variable. The null hypothesis for the ANOVA test is that the mean is the same for all classes. So when we carry out ANOVA test with R, proteins with p-value greater than 0.05 will be considered in the final model. Next. We also use the Shapiro-Wilk test to identify if the variables come from a normal distribution. The null hypothesis is that the variable distribution is normal. After using R, we can compute the p-value and determine variable which is significantly different from a normal distribution by looking at its p-value. If the p-value is greater than 0.05, this implies that the variable is not from a normal distribution. So there are 77 proteins in this data set. Using Shapiro-Wilk test, only 47 proteins fulfill the normal function. Then we conduct the ANOVA test on these 47 proteins, and only 32 proteins have significantly different means among the 8 groups. My team member will present the PCA part.
Okay, and then we'll continue to do the PCA, which is the principal component analysis, to the remaining 32 proteins. And when we do the PCA, we see the first 5 components cover around 95% of the cumulative proportions out of the total out of the total. So we graph this component 1 to 5 pairwise, and at first we see whether each classes we said that that's 8 classes, so we try to see whether these classes can be separated from the pairwise graph. But we see when we did the graph, we cannot really see the separation between those classes. So we test on each behavior, treatment, and genotype. And when we did that, we see that the behavior is the one that have some kind of separation, which is in component 3. Next. So yeah, this is the between PC1 and PC3, and we see that the loadings of the protein, these are the top 5, which is CA1, ERKN, ubiquitin, ENR2AN, and NR2AN. So these are the ones with the highest magnitude, the loadings with the highest magnitude. Next, yeah, and then we see, and then we plot pairwise between these 5 variables, these 5 proteins, and we see that some of them has some kind of correlation. As we can see between ERKN and NR2AN, there's some kind of positive correlation between them, and together it's similar as ubiquitin N and PNR2AN. Next. And then from this protein, we choose the one that is the one that we see have high magnitude of loadings, and we try to plot because we already see that the different behavior have some kind of separation. So we try to create a box plot and see which one has like distinct. We can see the distinction. So as we can see here, the ubiquitin and the PNR2AN has we can see the difference of the value. So we chose these 2, and yeah. Next. So as a conclusion, we selected these 3 proteins, which is CA1, AN, ERKN, and ubiquitin. These 3 as well have the most, as you can see, they have the biggest magnitude in loadings, and they have a distinct values. I mean, distinct values between the behavior. I think that's all from us.
Okay, thank you. That's a very nice picture of what's that movie? The one is Ratatouille, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Long time ago. Okay. Well, yeah, if you suggested these 3 proteins are good for differentiating between the classes, right? I thought you said there are 8 classes, but how come at the end only 2?
Yeah, because initially when we apply the PCA on the 8 classes, we can't really see the clustering effect, the clustering patterns. And then later on, we try to split the classes into just look at the behavior, treatments, and also the genotype. And then we found that the PCA has an obvious separation pattern in the behavior only. So that's why in this analysis, we only focus on the behavior of the mice.
So for behavior, you have 2 classes?
Yeah. It's either stimulated to learn or not.
CS is what?
Context shock.
SC?
Is shock context. So it means that in the stimulated to learn, the mice will be stimulated to learn when when they do some action and then they will be shocked by electric.
So it's a sequence of treatment given to the mice.
Yeah.
CS and SC. Okay, so the mice can be, so all the mice can be grouped into either CS or SC, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I think the 8 classes, they are kind of like sub classes, right?
Yeah.
That contain CS and SC, isn't it?
Yes. So there are 3 variables, which are behavior, treatment, and genotype, and each variables have 2 different levels.
CS are all, oh, okay.
Context shock.
So if you group all the CS, they are the same with respect to shock context, but they are heterogeneous with respect to saline and the injected amount. And oh, okay. So if you group them by trisomy, is there any pattern?
We have tried to group. I think based on the genotype, there is a type. I forgot. It's either the control or trisomy. It can show some separation patterns, but not as good as the behavior.
Okay, that's interesting because these are subgroups. So it may indicate that the subgroups, the difference is not very large.
Or maybe just the PCA is not powerful enough to give us the insight of the clustering pattern.
When you did the feature selection, how many of the proteins were used?
32.
Out of 77?
Yeah.
And you selected them based on p-value?
Yeah.
You use p-value. I would say we actually do not really have okay, you can also use the p-value, doesn't really matter. Except that if you want the p-value to be reliable, then all these modeling assumptions will have to be correct. Because the calculation of the p-value is basically the area under the curve, right? So if your curve, and your curve depends on the modeling assumption. So the p-value may actually depend on this kind of thing. So if you use the p-value, it's kind of like a little bit, a lot of work, you see, because you have to do all this testing. And in fact, what happens to the ones that don't fulfill your normality assumption, you go ahead and do it anyway, right?
We just ignore those not fulfill the assumptions.
What do you mean you ignore?
We just select the variables that fulfill the normal assumption, and then only we apply the ANOVA to do the feature selection.
Then how about the other 47 proteins?
There are 47 proteins fulfill the normal assumption, and then the other 30 proteins is just ignore.
What? You're not using them?
Yeah.
Okay, this could be the problem. You see, you have fallen into a trap of okay, so you're not doing inference work here. You have become too attached to the notion of doing hypothesis tests and trying to get p-values in order and things like that. In this situation, your focus is actually more on ranking the variables. So actually all these statistical tests at this stage, they are primarily for ranking your variables only. That's the most they can do. We don't actually take it very seriously. Like those p-values are very small, then we say they are statistically significant. We don't actually take it seriously when we actually try to do when we want to study variable selection. So in fact, in this case, right, I would say you could just go ahead and do calculate the F statistic for all the proteins, and then you just rank them based on the F statistic. Of course, because I don't know, like you imputed the missing values, right? So your degrees of freedom should be more or less the same. So it should be the same, but maybe if you have some values deleted or what, they still be more or less the same. So then you just basically rank the variables using your F statistic and use the idea of the scree plot like the other students have shown, right? I think the diabetes data set, they use the scree plot. They use the scree plot to help you do the selection. This could be the reason why, because you left out 30 proteins for a reason that is very suspicious, which is they don't fulfill normal assumption. So this is the part that I think can be improved lah. Okay. That's why if you rerun this, okay, so maybe the other group has a different, maybe they have do it slightly different. Okay. But maybe that's why you are not able to find anything for the 8 classes. But anyway, okay, it's fine. It's a learning process. So how about the last one? The last plot, you found that you got this, right? Okay, look at the pairwise scatter plot. The pairwise scatter plot, yeah. So this one is very interesting. Because you look at, they actually have clusters. They're actually clusters already when you look at the pairwise, right? The CA1, ERK form clusters, ubiquitin. In fact, yeah, there are lots of, they're already forming clusters at the 2D, so they will definitely, I think they probably will form clusters as well in 3D, or even like, yeah, or 3D if you just take 3. So in fact, you selected, further you selected 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are those? Okay.
Yeah, it's 3.
Yeah, I think if you do the 3D plot, you can see the clusters.
Yeah.
Very clearly. It basically shows that the 2 classes, the SC and CS, they have very strong. It's very strong. The pattern of clustering based on these 3 proteins. So these 3 proteins actually affect. They are highly associated with the behavior. And of course, if you are a biologist and you know these genes, right? This will immediately make sense to you. Okay, but of course, we are all data miners here, so unless you, of course, if you're interested, you can do some kind of literature search for these genes, and then you put in some keywords like behavior, learning behavior, or whatever. So see whether there are already people who are also found out this. I suspect that this would have been found already because their association is very strong. Usually the ones with strong association, they are likely to have been found by researchers. Okay, but it's good to do a further scatter plot to check the clustering, yeah, for these proteins. Okay. Okay, I think okay, good presentation. So let's have the next group. Next group, Chi Wei Yao, Farah, and Wong Tai Yao.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good evening everyone. To start, data mining is the art of exploratory data analysis. Today we are going to present our group assignment on mice protein expression dataset. So our team members, me, Paranadra, and together with Chi Wei Yao and Jeffrey Wong Tat Yao. Okay, so let's get started. This is a quote by Chip and Dan Heath. Data are just summaries of thousands of stories. Tell a few of those stories to help make the data meaningful. Okay, next. This is an overview of this data set. Okay, the selected mice protein expression dataset was generated from experiments by Higuera and Ahmed. These projects aim to understand the impacts of Down syndrome on learning through analysis of protein expression in mice. Down syndrome in humans is caused by an additional chromosome 21 referred to as trisomy. Davison successfully manipulated a mouse genome to produce several models of Down syndrome in mice. After the experiments were conducted, the mice were then assimilated and their cortical protein levels were analyzed quantitatively. To explain this figure here, the first binary variable is genotype, which are the control and trisomic mice. Then the second variable is behavior, where the mice are stimulated to learn or not. And lastly, for the treatment variable, some mice were injected with memantine or saline. Of the three binary variables, 8 classes of mice were used to generate the data set. The work of Higuera and Ahmed aimed to assess the efficacy of pharmacotherapies for treatment of Down syndrome. The mice protein expression data set can be explored to find out the level and relationship of protein expression quantitatively. Okay, next. This part is the introduction of our assignment. The objective for this project is to identify subsets of proteins that are discriminant among the classes. This dataset information that can describe are, this dataset contains 1080 instances and 82 attributes, and this dataset also has missing values. This dataset consists of 77 proteins modification, which are our variables, while for sample, we have 72 mice, which consists of 38 control mice and 34 trisomic mice. Okay, so just now I mentioned this dataset consists of 1,800 instances, right? This is because the 15 measurements of each protein per sample or mouse were run through the experiment. So this dataset is divided into 8 classes, which I have explained in the previous slide. So my team member Jeff will present the following part.
All right. So before we start doing our data exploration, we have run through a baseline algorithm as a SOP method, right? So for the data aggregation, we just use the mean first, like imputation, mean as well, before any fancy method, min, max, scalar. Then to see how the data distributed look like, we use the Q-mode PCA because the variables number is more than the sample data set itself. So better use the Q-mode to maximize the variance of it. Then we visualize using the normal, just the normal PCA scatter plot and see how it looks like. Now next. So at a quick glance, you can see that there is really no obvious trend or any separation that could ever happen between the classes. Even if you go through from PCA 1, 2, 3, 4, right, the randomness is just consistent. So the available features without any advanced method of doing the transformation wouldn't be usable at all. So this is what the things that we conclude. So next. Well, we just suspect that maybe there could be only, I mean, everything can be just represented in a class. There's no even class exists. So that's why we try to plot a correlation plot. Don't be overwhelmed by this. This is because our data got too many variables and we just want to lump up everything together. And if you can see, right, generally the color is light color, which means that there is no obvious correlation between the variable. So does it mean that there is just, if you lump everything together in one class, right, there is just not much variable that can happen together. So this show that there may be some kind of class that you can separate out, so that, and then after you separate out, only the correlation reflects. So this is a proof that maybe some classes happen. Right, next. So why not, right? We make the story simple. We try to do at least on the subgroup level of the binary classification and see how it looks like before going to the 7th group, right? So we can see that after, again, we run through the PCA method and visualize, and we see that genotype treatment is still hard to separate out. But behavior is already, you can see there is a linear separable, is linearly separable already, right? So next, we see, so next slide. So we can, why not we see if it's really the data imputation method or the data represent method that causing the data that is hard to separate. So we try out different method of how we aggregate, how we impute, and how we normalize the data, and all come up the same result. It is just impossible to separate out them together. So well, it can already show that the data maybe is just not enough to give the features obvious enough to separate the data. Well, next. Yeah. So
Okay.
let's, yeah, your turn.
So besides the QMO PCA, we also perform the t-test method on the 3 classes. And then we choose the top 3 variables that have the highest p-value. And then we apply the ARMO PCA on the 3 variables. So for the genotype and the treatment, we can see that there is also no obvious cluster found, and the result is consistent to the result of the QMO PCA. So both of these 2 classes is consistently hard to separate. And we see that the adjustment plot of the behavior, we can see that the cluster is perfectly separatable. Okay, so then we will look quickly at the scatter plot and biplot of the PC1, PC2 of the for behavior. So the variables used is the SOD1N, CA1, and the P38N. So we can see that from the PC1, the value that has lower than 0, that will be categorized as the contact shock, and the data that has more than 0 value, that will be categorized as the shock contact. So now we see at the biplot, and we can see that the SOD1N and the P38N is moved towards the right side, and the CA1 is moved towards the left side. So we can know that the shock contact mouse will have the higher values, like higher concentration of SOD1N and P38N at the in their genes, and the mouse with the contact shock will have a higher concentration of CA1. And for further exploration, we will look at the bar chart for the significance of the t-test value. So for the top 10 most significant variables for genotype, we can see that the APPN has a large gap of the values between the S6N. So we will try to predict the genotype with only this APPN to see how the result goes. So we construct a box plot for the genotype using only the APPN as variable. So we can see that there is some obvious cluster between the control and the trisomic mice. The control mice will have a value around the 0.4, and the trisomic mice have a value around the 0.6. And same we apply on the class. We apply on the treatment class. We choose only the num n to try the result, how the result goes. And we can see that the box plot for the treatment using the num as the only variable, that is not so obvious, but we can still categorize the Memantine and the 7 mice according to this box plot. And then since in the previous slide, we can categorize the behavior using the 3 variables, right? So now we try to use only 2 variables to see how the result goes. So we can see that this is the Grafman plot of the PC1 and PC2. So we can see that there is also a obvious clustering between the context shock and the shock context now. And then we see the biplot, and same as the previous result, the SOD1N will tend to the right, and the CNAN will tend to the left. And this is the scatter plot for the CNAN against the SOD1N for the behavior. So we can also see that there is obvious clustering around this line.
To conclude, by using Qmod PCA, we found out that only behavior class is separable out of the 3 classes. Genotype and treatment may need more careful labeling of data because no obvious features are derivable yet. We conclude that genotype and treatment could be the main reason why class is hard to clusterize. So because we found out it's hard to do the clustering using Qmod PCA, we use t-test to find the important features. Hence, we found out that APPN is an important feature for genotype class, NUMB for treatment, and SOD1 and CANA are significant for behavior. So that's all from our group. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for this presentation. Okay, one very quick question here. When you are looking, okay, so you did some kind of univariate visualization of, yeah, so APPN for genotype and NUMN for treatment. If you use the first two, like for example APPN and APPN and S6N, maybe you can see some clustering, maybe.
We didn't try that because we see that there's a huge gap between the S6N and the APPN. So we just use the 1 variable.
Well, usually try to look at pairs because one is actually, unless it's very strong, otherwise you may not be able to find any clustering patterns. You can try looking at two. No harm try doing that. Yeah. Okay, so then I wonder why you do principal component for when you only have two variables, because you don't need it, right?
Just a simple apply.
Because when you have 2 variables, it may be better to just plot them.
This scatter plot.
Yeah, just directly, because well, of course that one is just basically just another rotation, right? But it basically will have 2 variables. You just rotate. So yeah, it's a rotation. So it may be better to just put it in the original variable. This one you already scale it, is it? Because your data is running between 0 and 1?
Yeah, applying the min-max scaler.
Oh, you already scale it. Okay. So can you go back to the part where you did all this different processing thing? The part where Jeffrey showed just now, where you did a lot of different kinds of processing.
Can you see the screen?
I think a bit further to the back.
This.
More. Yeah, this one.
Oh, this one.
No, just previous slide.
This.
Yeah. So this is an example of what they call multiverse analysis. Like there are many different ways of processing the data, right? And each may actually give different kinds of results. So here, when you look at everything and then you conclude that they're more or less the same, this is a kind of example of what is called multiverse analysis. is a way to check how sensitive is your result to different kinds of data processing methods. Okay, so over here, I think you found that they are more or less the same, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I think this result here complements the previous one that yes, although you didn't do the I think they didn't put 30 variables inside the.
Yeah, we just choose a few variables.
But this one you did your QPCA, right? With all 77, isn't it?
Yeah, first test we use the QMO PCA. Yeah, this will test all the variables.
Yeah. You can definitely do that without any feature selection. That's definitely possible. Because from here, it already gives you a hint that behavior is separable, right? But the others are hard to separate. Yeah. Okay. 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 Thanks for this presentation. It's also.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. So we are left with, well, we still have 2 more presentations. We're running a bit out of time. Okay, so last data set, the glass data set. Who would like to go first?
We can go, Doctor.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay,
Alex and our group. Yeah, our team.
Okay. So go ahead.
All right. Can you all see the slide?
Yeah.
Okay, hello everyone. And our group is assigned with the class data set. Let me present in a quick version because I have no time. So we're going to explain on the data processing, selection, and visualization. So on the background of the data, there are actually 214 samples in the data set with 6 types of glass, which contributes to building windows float processed, building windows known, non-float processed, vehicle windows float processed, containers, tableware, and headlamps. Usually building windows float processed are usually the domestic building windows, for example, our house windows, such things. And non-float process is the old one, last time, the easy to break one. So just for information. And there are 9 variables in our data set, which are refractive index and 8 other chemical elements. Well, next, before we proceed to the data analysis, we would like to explore the data by summarizing the main characteristics. Based on this data set, actually there are no null values in the data set, and all data are numerical variables, and the variables to determine a compositional data measured with weight % in corresponding dioxides. Based on the chart on the right, we can see that the bar chart is based on type of glass. We can see that type 2 and type 1 are the most experienced by the usually by the forensic department, the criminological investigation department, because most of the crime will take place usually, will take place in the buildings. So that is why type 2 and type 1 are high. And besides, well, on the distribution of variables, all variables are not normally distributed, as Shapiro test gives significant p-values, which is less than 0.001. And the kurtosis of refractive index, potassium, calcium, and barium are greater than 3, indicating highly skewed data. You can actually refer to the box plot, which shows on the potassium, calcium, barium, and the risk index. Refractive index. Next, this is quite interesting on the pairwise plot. We can see that the outstanding one is the yellow one. The yellow is actually the glass type yellow. And it shows in the barium, we can see obvious separation where it has a high weightage of barium, which makes it simpler to be detected. But the cons is there seems to be a lot of outliers that need to be processed for better analysis. So without ado, I would like to pass it to my teammate for the pre-processing data analysis. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alex. So next slide. So because from the scatter plot just now, there are a lot of outliers. For any models
data quality is very important, as if there's a lot of outliers such as PCA, right? PCA, if you're able to use PCA depends on variance. So the presence of outliers will increase, it will be very sensitive to these kind of outliers. That's why we decided to remove the outliers. The simpler and we choose the method of the standard outlier detection, which is the 1.5 IQR, greater than 1.5 IQR or less than the negative 1.5 IQR. IQR is the interquartile range. So this is like the very standard kind of outlier detection method. Whereas there are a lot others, but we decided to use this for simplicity purpose. Then the outcome show that there are actually a lot of rows that contains outliers. Then so we actually remove 14 of the rows that contains multiple outliers. So we will be left with 200 data. Next. Okay, so about compositional data, it is not on the Cartesian kind of space. They are like the quantitative distribution of the parts of some whole relative information. So we have to pre-process this kind of data before we do. Actually, depends. So in this case, because we want all the variables to be in the same space, same numerical space, so we will transform the data according to, okay, next, according to these steps. Whereas we will take their geometric mean. Next. Okay, so first, for this, we will divide by 10 because they come in percentage, so we have to change them to proportion by dividing by 100. Then we add some pseudo value, as you can see that the FE there, behind there, the barium and FE, they have 0. If we will take natural log, they will give us problems, so we have to add some pseudo value, and we will normalize it to 1 again before we take the natural log. At the end, we will divide by the average of sum of row. Okay, next. So after the transformation, the distribution of data, the range of them will be different already. You can see it from left, they will become to right. As you can see from left, right, silicon has very high, like is like higher than the others. Since glass is mainly made from silicon, so it just makes sense. So on the right side, all data are in the same numerical space. Okay, next. Okay, so there are like we have to do some feature selection on these variables. We have performed the most simpler first check is the correlation matrix plot. So there are actually silicon, calcium, and sodium. They are highly correlated. They have correlation approximating to 1. So you can just either choose one of them, since they are almost the same, right? They correlate with each other highly. So we will decide to drop silicon and calcium to simplify our feature space, so that it has lower dimension for simpler analysis. Okay, next. I'll pass to my teammate. Sikim.
Okay. Can you hear my voice, right?
Yes.
Okay. So after we done the feature selection by checking possible collinearity between the 9 features, so we removed 2, there is silicon and calcium, so we left with 7 features. So after that, we proceed with the principal component analysis for further dimensional reduction. So for the result, we got, because of 7 features, we got 7 PCA, 7 principal component axis. And clearly from this pairwise PCA plot, the the yellow, there is the type 7 glass, can be separated easily by, even actually can be separated by a single dimensional space, the PC1. And for the other 5 types of glasses, we can see no matter which pairs we choose, the cluster is still not so, it can never be separated. So the other 5 types of glasses are clustered all together and overlapping each other, except for the last type. So next. So we have our script plot showing the proportion of variance explained by each of our principal components. So the highest is our PC1, approximately 68%, and followed by PC2 around 15%, and PC3 around 15%. So the first three are already accounted for 95% of the total variation of the data. So we can see the first two principal components actually explain around 83%, so it's fairly good. Next. So if we are going to choose two PCs, two-dimensional space of our principal components, so we will get our left, the figure on our left side showing clearly the type 7, the yellow point on the left. And if we want to include the PC3s, so we may get a 3D plot, but still we can only still separate the type 7 glass, that is the yellow one, and the others are clearly still mixed around, where the separation is not obvious. So next. So if we focus on the first two principal component space, the PC1 and PC2, and we got a biplot, and actually we can clearly see for the PC1, the highest contribution given by the barium percentage or proportion, and the magnesium proportion. So the reason that type 7 glass can be easily separated by PC1 is because, as we can see from the figure on the right, after we transfer the data, because originally the type 7 glass has high percentage of barium, so we transform using the center log ratio transformation, we got a very high numerical value in the Euclidean space. So that's why it pulls the type 7 glass to the left side of the PC1 and PC2 plot. And next. Also for the magnesium, because originally the type 7 glass has very low percentage of magnesium, almost zero. So when we transform to the numerical space, we got very, very negative value. That's why we pull again to the opposite direction of the magnesium in the biplot to the opposite side. That's why we got another pull further the type 7 to the left. And next. And for the iron, actually it just affected the PC2. So almost all of them have the same range, same scatter of their point. That's why the separation along the PC2 is not so meaningful. Next. So some key takeaways. PC1, the first three components cover around 95%, and PCs, the glass type 7 is the easiest and obvious to be separated from other glass type. In fact, actually in one-dimensional space PC1, and PCA is unable to separate cluster efficiently for the rest of the data of the glass type. So we take into account the percentage of total variation explained, and also the clustering results. We decided to retain PC1 and PC2. Next. So some future work. So because we use a very simple outlier detection method, so maybe some future work will be on other detection method like local outlier factor, and also we may try other dimensional reduction like LDA, as we can see PCA is not so efficient in this scenario. And last one, we may try other advanced model like random forest to proceed to better feature selection. Next. That's all from our group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. So I have a question about your decision to remove so-called outliers from the analysis. Generally, unless outliers can be actually part of the data generation process. So unless you have very good reasons to believe that they are outliers because of recording errors or what. Usually this kind of artificial errors. Otherwise, I think generally we should treat the outliers as part of the data rather than removing them. So in fact, you could actually, I don't think it will affect your results much if you included the outliers. So like if it was up to me, I wouldn't remove the outliers. Yeah, so I just feel that it's a comment about your decision to remove the outliers. But then I think if you look at your principal component plots, right? I think there's another principal component that you can actually use. Do you see that the magenta can be separated by, I mean, most of them anyway, they can be separated by component 4. Yeah. So component 4 should be some, if you want to retain 3 components, right? You probably should look at 1, 2, and 4. Like you have a 3-dimensional plot there, right?
Yes.
Look at 1, 2, 3, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, if you had looked at 1, 2, 4, you might probably see the cluster of 5. Because your result, right, when you did the univariate result, you go to a univariate result. The univariate results. The box plots. No, at the back. Yeah, you see, your type 5 glass has a unique signature for magnesium. And although not barium, but magnesium. So if you look at, you should check the loadings for PC6. Check the loadings for PC6, then you might be able to see that magnesium is important for separating type 5. It's okay that not all the glasses can be separated. It's actually fine, yeah, because we are just trying to see whether the glasses can be separated on the basis of their chemical composition, right? It's a hypothesis. Okay? It's not necessary that they can be separated. It's nice to know that they can, at least one of them can be separated, right? And that's on the basis of having high amounts of barium, right? Okay. In fact, when you look at the distribution of Mg here, right, you could actually back translate. I mean, you could actually look at it in terms of the proportion data. Okay. I mean, like the percentage data rather than the transform data, because that would actually be making more kind of like contextual sense to the data owner. Yeah. Although it's not wrong to present it in terms of the log transform data, but you could try presenting it in terms of the original percentage. Okay.
Okay.
Other than that, I think the graphical presentation is really quite well done. Except that I have to comment that you shouldn't have used the yellow. If you had planned, like this one is okay because you put the background is actually gray, right? You have a gray background. If you look at the previous ones, like your scatter plot, look at your scatter plot. Yeah, this one's right. If you want to use yellow, right, you got to color your background as gray to give it contrast.
Okay.
Okay. If you look at the pairwise scatter plot at the beginning.
Because I didn't really change the default ordering of the
you can
pages,
change
like,
the pairwise plot.
I can change or the change
Yeah,
background.
yeah, yeah. It's just a comment because there's no contrast. You see, and this one is very bad.
Okay.
It's very easy to solve this problem by just changing the color of the background. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for your interesting presentation. All right. So let's go on to the last group. So we are a bit over time, but it's okay. Just bear with me for another 15 minutes.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So let me first introduce the data we are using. The dataset we are using is a glass identification dataset. It consists of 11 attributes with 214 observations. There is no any missing values and no duplications in our datasets. The first attribute is ID number from 1 to 214. The second attribute is a refractive index of the glass. The third attributes up to the 10 attributes are the weight percents of chemical compositions of the glass in corresponding to oxide. These 8 attributes are type of compositional data where the sum of these 8 attributes for each observation should be approximately equals to 100. So the last attributes for our data is the type of glass. There are basically 7 different types of glass. The first 4 can be classified as a window glass, and the bottom 3 type of glass can be classified as a non-window glass. However, one of the type of glass, which is a type 4 vehicle windows non-flood process, is not existing in our data set. So our data consists of only 6 unique type of glass. So next, let us proceed to the methodology. Since our data set consists of compositional data, we pre-process our data by using a central log ratio transformation by the following formula, where the xij is the ij elements of the compositional data matrix, and the n is total number of variables in a compositional data matrix. To avoid the divisions of 0 in the log functions, we add 0.00001 to each xij. So next, let me pass it to my friends.
Our data are continuous data. Hence, we use ANOVA text to select the significant variable that have significant effect on the type of the glass. F value is the ratio of the between group variance, and within group variance, an F value equal to 1 or close to 1 means that there's no significant difference between the data. Whereas the higher the F value, the most likely it is that there's a true difference between the group. Next. To get more insight and understanding on the data, we perform a principal component analysis, PCA. PCA is used to search for the low-dimensional representation of the data that enable reasonable separation of the type of the glass. Eigen decomposition in the PCA was applied on the covariant matrix. Next. I will show the result of the ANOVA text. The ANOVA text shows that the F value of each variable in the descending order. We can see the baryons, potassiums, magnesiums, aluminiums, the sodium, silicon, and calcium have F value not close to 1. Besides, as we can see from the graph here, there's a large difference in the F value between the group of the variable with the rest. Hence, we decide to select the top 7 variables. Then Amy will continue the rest.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, let me continue to introduce the results of PCA. We performed the PCA on the 7 selected variables. Based on the results, the PC1 seems to be reasonably good in separating 2 groups of variables. Of the 6 types of glass, potassium and magnesium are the main contributors to PC1. And on the right side, it shows the B plot of P plot result. Let us look at the graph on the left. The building window float persist, the building windows non-float persist, and the virtual window float persist are represented by red, blue, and orange dot respectively. These 3 types of glass are window glass. They are distributed on the lower triangular area of the plot. For table wall and headlamps, they are represented by green, magenta, and the black dots respectively. We can see that they are distributed around on the upper triangular areas are considered non-window glass. So on the right, the window glasses are represented by dark orange dots, whether the non-window glasses are represented by dark green dots. So for our PCA is good in creating the window and non-window groups of glasses instead of the 6 types of glasses. Next. This part is introduce the distinction window and non-window glasses, barium, potassium, and magnesium. Okay, that's all for our presentation. Thanks for watching.
Okay, thank you, Amy. So, okay, I think it's interesting you group the different classes of windows to 2 types, right? Non-window and windows, and as a result, you found that they from different clusters. Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
So the 3 factors that you identified were what?
Barium,
Potassium,
and magnesium.
If you have some kind of scatter plot to support this, would be good, right? If you have a scatter plot to show like, well, this is in principal components, right? If you have it in the form of that 3 variables, that may be good.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least some kind of box plots.
Yeah.
Okay, you found PC1 and PC4. The other group, they didn't look at PC4, right? Just now.
Where we come.
The previous group, the group.
No, we didn't look at.
No, we didn't look at PC4.
We only look at the first few.
That's true. I think one of the things about PCA is that although the first few principal components may adequately explain like up to a high amount of total variation, sometimes the clustering patterns, right? They do not necessarily you do not necessarily find them in the first few principal components. They can actually skip like 1 or 2, like in this case. Okay, so this one in fact is component 4 is actually good for the Component 4 is good for the what? The table, the containers, the green ones. Is it the container?
Yeah, yes. The container and also the some of the vehicles window flood process.
So if you actually, in fact, if you make it to the classify to non-window and window, you could actually have a split. Yeah, using PC1 and PC4, you could more or less split out the samples to their groups. The first split you can split around somewhere around PC4. Yeah, you split at 0. So that's one horizontal line. And after that, yeah, you split around that. So and then you split around PC1. You split at around 0. So that would take care of the top left corner, that small region. Yeah, that small region will be mostly windows. The top left corner, yeah. If you after you split PC4 around 0, then you split PC1 around 0, you will get that top corner. And then the top right, that entire rectangle will be mostly non-window, right? And then after that, well, basically that's it. Then you will get your bottom left corner, those whole group will be window. Yeah. Well, actually you can split, maybe you split it around PC, close to PC1 at value of 5. Then you split up, mostly the group is window. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually 1.4 is actually quite useful if you are only interested to know whether it's window or non-window. And that sometimes may be sufficient if you do forensic work. You know that, okay, you find some glass on the crime scene. You can do a forensic test and it can tell you whether it comes from a window source or a non-window source. And that can help a lot in the investigation. But rather than, let's say you go to all the classes, right? There are 7 of them, may not be enough. Maybe it can be separated, but then again, maybe not, right? Because sometimes the building windows, they are more or less kind of like very similar, right? The composition is very similar. So you may not be able to differentiate them just based on the chemical composition, okay? Okay, so, okay, thank you for this analysis. So,
thank you.
Yeah, this data set, the interesting part is that it's compositional data. So you must, you cannot directly just do PCA on the compositional data. It's going to fail because the space of the, like they said, the space of the values is actually not in the Euclidean space. It's in some kind of like a constrained space. So it doesn't work on your PCA because your PCA is assuming that the data are lying on the Euclidean space, right? So for this kind of data, fortunately, we know how to deal with them, which is we do the center log ratio transform. Once you have done that, then basically it just behaves normally like your data sitting in the Euclidean space, and then you can use your usual methods to study the clustering, okay? All right, okay, so it's very interesting to listen to all your presentation today. I think everyone did quite well. So I think, yeah. So do you want to tell me slightly about your experience working with each other during this period of time? Was it easy to work?
Yeah, I guess it's...
Or it took you a lot of time to get it done?
No comment on the time taken, actually. Yeah, it's like more to looking into the fundamentals again and try to grab it to know what we are trying to do. Yeah.
How about the students from China? Was it okay working like over the internet for this assignment?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, you think it's okay?
Mm-hmm.
Amy, it's okay.
Yes.
B Wei is actually in KL, so she's okay. Is it okay for you, B Wei?
Okay, okay.
All right. Yu Jing.
I'm okay.
All right. Okay, that's great. So I hope you enjoyed the. Was it challenging to work on these data sets? Was it challenging to work on them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the reason for giving you these data sets is that they are real data sets, and they are something that they approximate what you will encounter in real life when you work with real data sets in the industry or wherever. So these are still kind of like quite tame. The real ones actually they are full of missing values and there are other complications. So I hope by working with these data sets, you will gain some kind of like more confidence to work with real data sets. Sometimes the hard part about this kind of data sets is that there seems to be many ways to do things, and you are not sure how to proceed. This is actually very normal. There seems to be like too many ways to do it, so you feel like, oh, there are too many ways, so you kind of like overwhelmed, right? But if you kind of like start off with first of all, you restrict yourself to some subsets of the methods, right? Like the ones that we learn in the lecture, and get some preliminary results. Then after that, you kind of like have a better feel about the data. Then you can start to explore other things, all right? And as we have seen, actually, quite a few of you actually got to experiment with somewhat techniques that were not covered in the lecture, which is okay, right? Because this is like independent learning, right? And it's still kind of like relevant to the topic. So that's I would consider that to be a good sign of independent learning, all right? Okay, so yeah, so we're going to have more fun with this type of data for the next assignment, which is more like we're going to build machine learning models. And I'm thinking about continuing from these data sets. All right. So what do you think about that?
Agree.
It's like we continue with these data sets, and then we the methods that we learn later in the coming weeks, then we kind of like apply them on the data set that you have worked in, and maybe you'll get to refine some other things as well. So then you will get to go to a certain degree of depth with respect to working on a real data set. What do you think?
I agree with it as well. It's like, yeah, like what you mentioned. It's more to understanding.
It's like a continuation, because I see that these data sets can be extended for such type of purpose. Because the also good thing is that you already have worked on the data, so you have some understanding about the data set that you have at hand. So it will be just a nice continuation. And of course, you can at this stage since you understand it better, you might decide that the previous data processing that you did was maybe can be improved, so you go back and do it. Then the end result will be something that is maybe more solid. Yeah. Okay, but so for that, okay.
Hello, Kang.
Yeah.
I have a question. How do we know when to stop if we are like exploring one method? Just now you mentioned that there are a lot of methods that can be used, and then it's overwhelmed because to know which one to use, right? So you say if you test with the simple preliminary methods, and then like because you need to spend some time on the simple method first, right? And then how deep should it go? Maybe the simple method won't give you result, or have to dig deeper until there's nothing to be seen, then only move on to the other method, or what? Because there are still like time constraint and a lot of things, right?
Yeah. So well, okay. So usually the methods that I taught, right, like principal component and all that, they are actually quite useful already for you to decide whether further follow-ups will be productive or not if you continue to do a machine learning model. Having said that, principal component analysis is an unsupervised method. So if you already have labeled data, right, sometimes there is an improvement to PCA that you should try, which is called the LDA. That one we will learn later in the coming weeks. So that can also be used as a tool for exploration, although people use it for prediction as well. And then of course the other things would be like the more common, some other methods like checking the distribution of like the class labels and maybe checking the distribution of some variables of interest. Those are more kind of like intuitive, common sense methods that are very basic. So yeah, so those I think would be something that you need to try. But sometimes if you have tried you've got a lot of plots, right? You don't need to show all of them. You see, you have to decide what you want to put inside an analysis report. So, so I guess sometimes it might be hard to know when to stop, but sometimes this requires some experience. So with some experience, then you may have some better idea to say, okay, I think it's probably sufficient, and then we can go ahead and see what we get. And a lot of times this entire process is very iterative. It's like you may decide to continue, and then with some prediction model, and then you don't find much. Doesn't mean that it stops there. You can actually go back and think about, okay, maybe is there something else that I can do better at the data extraction step and things like that, right? And yeah, that might give you some further ideas. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then I have one suggestion for the diabetes data set, right? For the coming continuous assessment, I would also like to put you in the same groups, right? But maybe for the diabetes data set, I can pull all of them together so that you have 4 people inside. Is it okay for the diabetes? Okay, is it better now? Can you hear? Is the audio breaking or what?
I can hear.
I can hear from my end as well.
Because it's raining, so maybe sometimes the audio will be a bit breaking. Okay, just to repeat, I want to ask the diabetes group whether you're okay with like merging the 2 groups to form 1 group.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because it might be actually for exploration, you don't need to do that much work because it's a smaller data set. But so 2 people should be enough. But once you go to the machine learning stage, maybe there's some complexity. So maybe yeah, more people will be like, it should be 3, but then we have 1 extra, so we just put it together. All right. Okay. All right. So then that's it. All right. So for today, yeah. Sorry for taking extra time from everyone.
Doctor, I have a question.
Yeah.
Each of us have to submit the presentation slides and our codes, or only one?
Just 1 rep is enough.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Yeah. Each group, you just need to have 1 rep to, you decide among yourself lah, right? To who will make the submission. Okay. Just put it in a zip file where you have the presentation and also your R code. Okay, your slides and your R code. That's all. 2 things.
Yeah, Dr. Kang, is it okay that if I put more files inside, like some of the pages, because my R code itself is converted from the tools that I'm using, so the comment itself, it wouldn't be appearing at that part.
Yeah. If it helps with understanding the code, then you can put in extra.
Yeah. Okay then. Thank you, Dr. Kang.
Okay, so later I will compile that and then I put up as a downloadable file so that you can actually, everyone can download and then you can check out each other's work. All right. Okay, so that's all for today. Thanks for following, and so I'll see you next week. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Kang.
Okay, bye.
Hello, Doctor. I actually forget to sign in my attendance just now. So, can you help me put my attendance?
Oh yeah. Okay, I'll just manually. Who else has not?
Same here.
I think everyone
Same.
is here. So if I don't see you sign on, I'll just tick for you. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, it's okay. I think everyone is. I mean, like everyone is here, right? So yeah. Okay. Don't worry. Okay, that's all. Bye.